I suggested Dawn Brings Light, but he didn't seem interested in using that one for some reason.
Don't understand why.
That's good. That's pretty good.
Yes, especially since Dawn is Lightbringer, right?
Maybe a bit too on the nose, maybe. Yes.
Yeah.
And speaking of House Dane, so many people that follows, at least me on Twitter, we speculate a lot about House Dane, and from lineage to Dawn equals Lightbringer, which, if I'm not mistaken, you support as well, at least a little bit. And Ashara Dayne is, without a doubt, a fascinating character. Which is the focus of numerous speculations. So I think there's like a running joke in the fandom, the Italian fandom at least, which is when in doubt, it's probably Ashara. There's one particular theory though that has stuck with me in the last few years, I think, which is about Ashara being alive, disguised as Gianna Reed. Do you have any thought about this theory? Do you think she's live, or any other theories regarding Ashara?
So that's very interesting. May I ask you, is this a recent theory in Italian fandom, or just one you came across recently?
Correct me, it's a kind of sort of newer theory, which comes from Poor Quentin, I believe, which is an American YouTuber or something.
His wife, I think, soon to be wife, it's Chloe Ketchum from Girls Gone Canon.
Okay, I asked because, funnily enough, it's actually a very, very old theory.
Really?
I remember a fan named from the old, not even the Easy board. So the history of our forum, it goes all the way back to a site called EE Site. So we're talking, 1999, 2000. And there was someone who actually had that exact theory that Gianna Reed was, in fact, Ashara Dayne.
Yes, I remember that now. Yes.
I'm trying to remember his name.
But it doesn't work since she's Quaity. I mean, she can't be both.
Yes,
obviously.
It is known. It is known. No, but yes, he had this very. I'm sorry, I'm forgotten his name because I didn't care for his theory very much because it was a very mystical, and it depended a lot on the idea that the green fork of the trident was the fork of life. Green is life, and that leads to.
I remember that.
That George doesn't really work that way.
That it was supposed to point to where. Yeah.
So that said, I don't think Gianna Reed is Ashara Dayne, to be honest. It is an interesting theory. And this, by the way, is Winter, our boxer, who's kind of wondering why
you were being very boring.
You're very boring. So in any case, let's see. So this thing up there. I would say that besides our own loony theory that Ashara Dayne is Quaithy of Ashai, we don't know. George did say, Ashara. Obviously, a lot of people have focused on, except Lamore. I don't think so. I feel like her description is wrong. But I could be wrong about. I feel like.
For the longest time, we thought Ashara was blonde, of course, because
fair Ashara Dayne, yes,
Ashara
with a
Dayne,
black
and
hair.
And then it turned out, she's Elizabeth Taylor.
Well, yeah, so that's another one that he was reused in Fever Dream. There's a dark-haired, violet-eyed vampire woman who's very beautiful. It's an image that George obviously likes. I think in some of 1,000 Worlds as well. It's an appealing image, and when he told us years ago, Elizabeth Taylor had violet eyes, she wasn't Targaryen. We should have taken it quite literally that he was thinking that the Danes looked more like that. I don't think it's up to Lamore. I think Lamore's story is different, but I don't know. It'll be interesting to see.
Should I go and exile this fellow?
Yeah, you should go and do an exile. We'll usher him out.
Come here, boy. Come on.
Give him some candy, maybe.
I'll give him his tool.
So it's very fascinating because I think the theory about Gianna, in the Italian fandom at least, I think it's pretty new. Like there are some translations here and there about theories written in English for So yeah, it's fascinating that is that old, the theory. So
yeah, I think, I mean, it's one that was very old, a very common, like on the east side, easy board, and then it kind of just it disappeared. I think the fan who supported it kind of fell off, and it would never really, it had some devotees because they liked the style of thinking that way, but other fans who didn't think that way didn't really buy it, and so it kind of disappeared. So when I read it, I was like, oh, that's funny, because it's been like 20 years since I last heard that theory. So that was very interesting. It is interesting. I mean, the thing I would take out is, like, I mean, is the idea of them that Mira and Jojen are supposed to be Ashara's children?
Yes. Technically, yes, that's the idea.
Doesn't anyone think they're just like way too short to be? But I mean, that's dietary, I suppose.
Yes, too many frogs.
Too many frogs. Yeah. No, I don't think so, but I said we George constantly surprises us, so maybe we're in the wrong on this one.
Yeah. So actually, there's Engroll that talk about Martin's three-step revelation theory or strategy, which is actually very interesting because it fits with everything we pretty much said. So there's first the subtle hint, then the plain clue, and in the end the revelation. So is there any plot that comes to mind when maybe you think about writing the World of Ice and Fire, back when you were writing the World of Ice and Fire, that makes you think, oh, yeah, that has something to do with this kind of strategy or something?
Well, in A Ice and Fire, I can definitely see it. For example, with the assassination, the attempt of Ombrand's life, how it's so subtle. I mean, even today, there are people who don't accept that Joffrey was the one who sent the assassin. But George did, like, he felt he had put together enough clues to begin with to let you kind of look at the dynamics there and realize who might have done it. And then he makes it more explicit with, for example, when Tyrion presents the book and Joffrey ends up chopping it up with Widow's Wail, and then maybe he suggests, and he kind of puts it together. So George does do that to a degree. I don't know. I have never tried to map it out. Like, here's all these mysteries where George had subtle clues and then more plain clues and then the revelation of, obviously, John Arryn's assassination. That's another one where you have a little bit, then you get a bit more, and then you kind of get told. 3 seems like a very set number. It seems to me like sometimes it might can take longer. But for the World of Ice and Fire, I specifically...
He also likes red herrings.
He also likes red herrings, yes.
So there will potentially be some of those slipping in as well.
I would... The World of Ice and Fire, I don't think really worked that way.
No.
And Fire and Blood, I don't think in particular has any...
Because often the subtle clues depend on character interactions.
Yeah.
On that sort of level, it's very difficult to do subtle clues in a good way in a non-narrative, or in just where you just have a narrative and where you don't have the character's thoughts, you don't have character reactions. Because if you take something like Rhaegar and Lyanna, and you say that one of the first subtle clues is Ned thinking about Rhaegar's character, that's the sort of thing that has to be from a character point of view to work. And because you trust the narrative of the story, which says, okay, Rhaegar abducted and raped Lyanna. And then yet afterwards you go back and look at, how can you miss the fact, well, you can, it's very easy, that a character that is so reliable as Ned, a character who was Lyanna's brother, is casting doubts on the idea that Rhaegar had, a flawed character, that he was in fact apparently a very nice person. And just so, yes, I think those definitely depend on having character point of views. Actual revelations he didn't really want to put into the world of ice and fire. So no, that needs to stand novel narrative to work.
Okay, so let's do the last one. Do you know if there is any reason why Daeron I decided to marry off Daena to Baelor instead of marrying himself, since it's the...
One of the first things we asked him probably about the game, because we were starting with Daeron invading Dorne. I was like, okay, Daeron doesn't have a wife.
Yeah.
We asked him, I think, do you have a wife in mind for Daeron?
So, I mean, the history of this is because, I mean, George's original idea is, oh, yeah, Daeron got married to someone and had a queen. I just haven't come up with her.
So we had an unnamed queen for the first 2 years of the game.
Did we?
Yes, we had an
I
unnamed
that.
queen.
It's been a long time. Yes, and then George, but his family tree didn't include her. So it was a bit odd because mostly, like, he could have included his queen and not named her. Yeah. But so then at a later point, we kept suggesting to him, you know, wouldn't it make more sense that Daeron didn't marry because this young warrior king thought he was immortal and thought, you know, he had grand plans and he didn't have time for it. Sweden has its great warrior king, Charles XII, who, you know, defeated the Russians and did all sorts of great things during this sort of the great power period of Sweden. And then he got himself killed with no wife and no children. And we thought, you know, it could be something like that. Daeron just doesn't bother. On our game, Blood of Dragons, we actually dealt with it. It's not that he didn't bother. It's that he was thinking of marrying a Dornish princess. And it was more a matter of picking the right time to kind of consolidate Dorne, but then he gets killed before that happens. So we don't have a definitive answer. All I can say for sure is that the latest family tree, George, you know, George sent us some notes. I keep forgetting if George actually addressed.
I could have sworn that he ended up
saying explicitly that he didn't get married.
That it was a good idea, saying that that he would go with the idea basically that he didn't
marry because
he didn't think of it. You know, he saw himself as young, immortal, basically.
Yeah,
he would be. There would be time for that after he consolidated the kingdom.
Yeah, it's good. So I can pick up the email very
all
quickly.
of your emails.
Oh, you never know. Okay, wait a second. I'm seeing. There we are. We have this long email from George in which he was explaining the family tree. This was sort of towards the end of writing The World of Ice and Fire. Obviously, it was interesting because our first look at the family tree was like 2000, 1999, and then it's interesting to see what changes that have happened over time to a tree. Let's see. Aegon III. Prince Baelor and his sister are wed, not consummated and old.
No, he seems
he basically just skip. He doesn't bother.
So I think he settled
on Daeron not being married.
On Daeron not marrying, and probably explaining it with the idea that, you know, he was fairly young and probably figured he would be back home from fighting in
would have plenty of time,
6 months, and then and then he'd get married. Why he didn't think of then marrying Diana for himself, well, maybe he thought she was too much of a handful. Maybe he had decided, like, as much as he liked his sister and as much as she liked him, he would have liked a quieter home life.
Yeah, probably Baelor did too.
Or maybe he figured that he was already seeing the way Baelor was and figured that the only way that Baelor is going to produce any children is if I marry him to Diana and she throws herself at him, but he underestimated Baelor's piety and dedication to the Seven. So maybe it was his attempt to see if he could shake up Baelor a little bit.